In the last video, we went from home to Munich and tracked every dollar along the way, all so we could do one thing, Oktoberfest. And this is what Oktoberfest really looks like and what it cost us. Then we're off to the Bavarian Alps and finishing our 12-night trip in Amsterdam, continuing to show you every cost along the way. Entry to Oktoberfest is free. We love free on this channel. And it took us about 30 minutes to walk there. It took us a little longer than I thought it was going to, but it was a pretty easy walk. The weather didn't really cooperate during our Oktoberfest adventure. It kind of rained on and off all night, which was kind of a bummer. If you have not been to Oktoberfest in Munich before, I absolutely recommend it. It was huge.
He was waiting for me for a while, and then he was like,
And I was really surprised at how much of a family affair it was, because whenever I hear Oktoberfest, I think beer tents and a bunch of drunken people, but there were actually a lot of families in their dirndl and their lederhosen with little kids, and they were all having a really good time. So that surprised me just a little bit.
Did take the time to go check out some of the classic Oktoberfest rides.
And we did have those mapped out a little bit. There were a couple that we had seen doing our limited research, since we only had a few days before we left, that we definitely wanted to get in, and we did. The first of those is called the Toboggan. We didn't do that ride. Actually, we didn't do either of these rides, but we watched and we had a great time watching people. So the toboggan, think of a really fast, the moving walkways, that's really fast on a slant, and people basically surf it on the way up. And then there's a big slide that takes them down. And so you can imagine, after people have spent a little bit of time in the beer tents, it can be pretty comical.
Yeah.
To watch. So there were little kids that were doing it. There were adults that were doing it. It was lots of fun to stop and watch for a little bit.
The next one we went to was something called the Devil's Wheel, or and I'm not gonna pronounce this right, Teufelsrad. We paid €3 each to get in, and whether you ride it or not, it doesn't cost you any more to ride it, or just be a spectator. You know, cheer the folks on that are participating. Call people up in groups like Men in Lederhosen.
And the riders climb onto this disc. It's kind of conical. It's not flat. It's conical, right? But it's not super steep. It gets faster and faster as time goes on.
So the last hangers-on will have to deal with, and they'll have ropes and so forth, and they'll swing them at them. You don't get anything for winning. You get the satisfaction of being the last one on.
And the whole time there's music going, lots of American music, more American music than you would think. And everybody just had a blast watching it. So it was definitely worth the €3.
So our final stop at Oktoberfest was one of the beer halls. Now they have more than 30 beer halls or tents. Some are actual wooden halls that are constructed before the start of Oktoberfest and broken down when it ends.
Yeah,
so that's pretty cool.
Crazy.
Yeah, and they do a good job of this. There are 14 large beer halls or tents and 21 smaller ones for the event, and 3 festival tents located in what they call the Ode Wiesen. So we went into the Hofbrau tent, one of the larger tents actually, and this is actually, Hofbrau is one of the larger beer brewers. This tent held over 7,000.
In the tent.
And another 3,000 outside. So that's like over 10,000 people in one tent, in and around one tent.
This is one of those things, one of the reasons why I tell people they need to travel, because you can see pictures. I can load you up with pictures or even our video, and you can look at it and be like, wow, but it is not the same as being there. Sometimes you just have to experience it in person to really get the the full flavor of something. So we had a great time. We did try some of the food. Oh, and again, this is all cash. So this is another reason to have cash, because it was cash only at the beer tent. Our total was about 80 euros, and that was for a meal and a beer each. Food was okay, but it was not as good as it would be out in town. Beers are more expensive. So it was 15 euros per liter. What you're really paying for is the experience, and hands down, that was good money spent. For me, we got to meet some really great people. We walked around and we got to see some of the people who had perhaps been there an hour or two too long, having a grand old time. And I don't know how they do it. I do not know how those waitresses get through all of those people carrying food and beer.
So on our way out, we decided to buy a few souvenirs.
In Munich, everywhere you could buy lederhosen and dirndls at all different price points. And I saw a lot of tourists who were buying them. But the question is, are you going to use it? You know, you really got to think, okay, if I'm going to spend $100 or $150 on this, am I going to be happy I spent that money 6 months from now? When we're talking about souvenirs, we always try and remind each other, like, okay, do you need one more coffee cup? Or can we just take a picture and call it a day?
For the souvenirs, it cost us $35.16 we spent. So while we walked to Oktoberfest from the hotel, remember, it was late in the evening, it was dark out, so we decided, we're going to take an Uber from the festival grounds back to the hotel. It did cost us $17.20 to get back, that's with the tip, back to the hotel. So the next morning we went through a little bit more of Old Town and found this little place called the Alpina im Schuster. I had their white sausage breakfast, which is these white sausages called Weisswurst, which is a traditional Bavarian white sausage, along with a pretzel and mustard. It was like a
sweet mustard.
Like a sweet mustard.
It's my understanding that it's mostly for breakfast. So that's not something you're going to have as an evening food. It's mostly a breakfast food. Did I remember that correctly?
Yes. And you have to, when you get it, the skin, you don't eat the skin. You peel the skin off as you take it out of the bowl.
I had scrambled eggs on sourdough with a pumpkin seed oil. And it was good. That total was $43.55 for breakfast. Then we booked it back to the hotel so that we weren't late for our checkout.
Yep.
We took an Uber back to the train station. That cost us $15.28. After the fact, we decided we really should have walked. I think I was just feeling lazy that morning. And with the bags, I was like, nah, we'll just take an Uber. But honestly, in retrospect, we probably just should have walked back to the train station.
So next stop,
Edelweiss. So once we got to the train station, we boarded our train to Garmisch. The tickets for that were $47.50. Garmisch was the site of the 1936 Winter Olympics and is still a ski resort, outdoorsy. And we went there because the military Edelweiss resort is located there, and that's where we wanted to stay over for the Bavarian Alps portion of our trip. The train was only about an hour, but it was really nice to sort of see the countryside. And then once we arrived in Garmisch, we stopped at the Hotel Vir. I'm just going to put this on the screen because I will massacre it. We stopped there. It's right across from the train station in Garmisch as part of a hotel. And we had some apple strudel and some lunch. And the check came to $56.47. And then we just walked back over to the train station, grabbed a taxi, which cost us about $20, and then went to Edelweiss. Now, we were able to stay at this military-only resort because Michael's retired military, but we recognize that there are a lot of people watching the channel that may not be military. We'll just say that in total, we spent 3 nights there. Our hotel and our food, and then some of the snacks we bought for the train to Amsterdam came to $672.65. If you're active duty or a military retiree and you want some additional information about that particular resort, we'll put our resort review in the description so you can take a look at that. But there are plenty of other places in Garmisch for you to stay. And again, think of it like a ski resort town. Very lovely, very walkable. Even if you don't ski, there's plenty to do there. Pretty much all times of year because there's hiking and the views are just spectacular.
Yeah.
So
after we spent 3 nights in Edelweiss, we jumped on the train for our final destination in Amsterdam. Yeah. So we grabbed the train from Garmisch back to Munich, which was $47.50, so the same amount coming down, going the other way.
And that was standard class.
Yeah, that was standard class, because this was a regional train too. The train from Munich to Amsterdam, and that was $395.
And that was first class.
So at one of the stations called Munich Passing, to change trains, while we were there, we grabbed some snacks, $9.88.
Yes.
Cheap.
And I had a butter and chive pretzel, which I had to date not had, but I will eat them again when I go back. I don't know what it is about the butter and chive that I dug so much, but anyway, it was good. So I recommend you at least try it.
I just had a regular pretzel myself. Those 2 pretzels with some water to take on the train. Once again, $9.88. We had planned to get into Amsterdam like
earlier,
like at dinner time, just before dinner time. But our train got delayed in Cologne, and we ended up not getting to Amsterdam until pretty late. So what we decided was we were just going to take an Uber from the train station in Amsterdam out to the hotel. We picked a hotel that was right next to the airport, which was an Ibis hotel. That one cost us $220.67.
The theme throughout this whole trip was rain, because Amsterdam was rainy. Honestly, that's when you're traveling in that shoulder season, sometimes that's what happens. Sometimes weather works with you and sometimes it doesn't. Again, it was worthwhile for us. The trip overall was really good, but we did have a long stretch of rainy sort of days that slowed us down a little bit. And then the next morning, we did take the train into Amsterdam proper, and round trip for those 2 tickets cost us about $28 because it was morning time, obviously. We headed over to the water side of the main train station and went to Pancake Amsterdam, which is a chain restaurant, but the pancakes were really good.
They're like this big.
Yeah, they take up like a plate.
The whole plate.
Yeah, yeah. And so it was about $50 for us for breakfast. It was a good convenient spot, and we got a great view of the water, and we're able to look over in North Amsterdam.
And keeping in mind, Amsterdam, it's the Netherlands. Things are not cheap in the Netherlands.
We spent probably a little more time than we normally would just trying to get our bearings because there were some protests going on at the time, and so some of the metro was shut down, and there were some things that sort of complicated us figuring out how we wanted to do things. So we stopped at a cafe and we got some coffee. Kind of the big thing we really wanted to do on this day was a canal cruise. And so thankfully the weather cleared a little bit, or at least long enough for us to take the canal cruise. It was an open boat ride, and we did that on purpose because we didn't want to have kind of like plastic and metal and all that stuff around us. But we were taking a chance because we knew the weather wasn't great.
But it did hold up.
And we opted to purchase the cruise without food and drink. So with most of the cruise lines, you can do it with or without like open bar kind of thing. And usually they have some snacks involved. But given the time of day we were doing it, it just didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. Just a note of caution though, on this particular cruise, and I imagine it happens on the other tours as well, the staff that was running the bar offered everybody drinks, but didn't say until the very end when she was settling up tabs that the drinks weren't included. Now, I knew the drinks weren't included because that's how I bought my ticket. But some people seemed a little confused and didn't realize that the drinks weren't free with their ticket. Anyway, people got a little confused. And so just be aware when you're buying your ticket, whether or not you're getting drinks or not. And if you get on the boat and they don't, and they don't mention a tab, that doesn't mean you're not running one. We looked at purchasing the flagship canal cruise tour directly with the company, and I usually always start there. But I also look at Viator or Get Your Guide. And in this case, we ended up purchasing our tickets through Viator, and that was $59.01. But to get to Viator, I went through Rakuten, which gave me some additional cash back. And because I purchased them through Viator, we also got $2.87 in Viator rewards. So that was that turned out to be less expensive than if I'd gone directly through the company. After the canal cruise, we walked around town and stopped at a Cafe to Small and got some bitterballen and a ham and cheese sandwich. Enjoyed hanging out by the canal. That was $22.93. So it was nice to just sort of watch all the boats float by. And we did have a couple of fowl that were hoping we would drop some stuff in the water.
So after we were done eating, I noticed right across the canal was a sign that said Amsterdam Cheese Museum. So we walked on over, couldn't find the door to this, and then realized the cheese museum was located inside of a cheese shop. It was super informative, like everything from the history of cheese making in the Netherlands, equipment they used, old photos and everything. And then we went back upstairs where there were free samples.
They get you upstairs though, because while the samples are free, and I think everybody I saw walked out of that place with
you're gonna buy
cheese,
something.
so you're planning on buying something.
You're gonna buy something. We did buy some gifts for home because it was $34.53 for several different cheeses.
Yeah.
And we bought some chocolate at a place called L'Artisan de Amsterdam as well.
They had some really lovely fall themed chocolates that we gave as gifts when we got home. So I can't vouch for how they tasted, but they looked really pretty and were perfect for like a Thanksgiving table. It was really kind of cute. And those were $25.86. We took a different way back to see a little bit more of the city, just kind of walking through neighborhoods. And we ended back at the main train station. And one of the things I wanted to see while I was there was the bike garage. Because I don't know, it just feels surreal to me that they built an entire garage just for bikes. Obviously, Amsterdam is known for bikes, and they say there's more bikes than people there. But the last time I was there, they were still building the garage. So I kind of wanted to see what it looked like. Kind of the main garage that holds 7,000 bikes, and then there's another, like the old garage, that holds about another 4, so it's 11. They can hold 11,000 bikes at any time at that main train station, which just still feels crazy to me.
The weather was getting a little iffy at this point, so we decided we were going to head on back to the airport.
Yep.
Or back to our hotel, which was near the airport. This time we took the train back out that way.
Yep.
And once we got there, we decided to grab dinner at the airport. We ate at a place called Per Tutti. Spent $38.40. It was Italian food, but food at the airport. Our flight home the next morning was on Aer Lingus, and I'd say that it was a good flight. It was pleasant. There wasn't anything.
That was pretty uneventful,
except the check-in experience. That we
Yeah, I had never done Aer Lingus, and I was surprised. Like, British Airways was right next door, which I anticipated, but like the British Airways staff was there bright and early, getting their work done, and there was a school group in front of us, so we had a pretty long line at the Aer Lingus check-in, and nobody, I mean, it felt like they showed up at the very last minute. It wasn't really the very last minute, but I felt like they want you at the airport 3 hours early, and we were there 3 hours early, and then we had to wait.
Yeah.
I don't know, it was at least 45 minutes.
Yeah.
To check in. So I was a little annoyed by that, but
flights on Aer Lingus to come back were a total $292.62. That's for both of us to come
plus
back.
points.
Yep.
The flight was pleasant. It was a fairly short layover at the Dublin airport. So we grabbed a quick meal there, and that was $42.
I do want to point out that was because we couldn't get into the lounge.
Yes, that's right. Because we tried to get, which is why while again, we are huge lounge fans, it doesn't always work out as seamlessly as some people talk about. Sometimes you can't get in, or you can get in, but by then it's so close to your flight time, it's useless. And in this case, we couldn't get into a lounge.
Right. And now we do have a few extra items that we paid for. We got that we often recommend you should get. We use Airlo for our international data packages. They provide eSIMs. You could use whoever you want, but we did spend $59.65 for 2 of them, one for each of us, and that covered our entire time.
We will have a affiliate link in the description below. So if you're going to purchase an eSIM and you'd like to do that through our link, we do get a little something for that. But I do recommend that you use an eSIM card rather than a physical SIM card, because it's so easy to lose those.
Those little
They're just so little.
Cents,
yeah. Anyway, so that's one.
We signed up for what's called a UK ETS. It cost us $45.22 for both of us. That's pretty much it.
So the total cost for this trip was
$3,674.14.
And that's for 12 days, and that includes everything soup to nuts, as they say.
Yep.
And I will say that our costs would have been even lower if we had not done as many cities, because obviously transportation becomes, for most people, one of their biggest costs, right? That and hotels are probably your 2 biggest costs. I don't regret what we did. Having said that, if it was my choice, we probably would have kept Amsterdam out, only because of time constraints. And I feel like we could have spent a little more time in Munich if we hadn't done Amsterdam. But we had a great time. And actually, if the weather had been more cooperative, we probably would have fit more in. But I still think $300 a day for 12-day vacations.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
To Europe.
For 2 people.
To Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming along on this journey. We hope you enjoyed the video. You got something out of it. And it's going to help you plan your future trip, or maybe just gave you some good entertainment. If any of that is true, we'd always appreciate it if you give it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you want more like this. And until the next time, this is Kathy.
And Mike.
From Suitcase Packable Travel.
We'll see you in the next one.